Nearly about 200 nations have agreed on the rules for the landmark Global Climate Pact rules after overcoming a huge impasse. No consensus has finally, it appears, been reached on a detailed framework for the 2015 Paris deal. And this has brought to an end 2 weeks of talks and negotiations in the city of Katowice in Poland. The nations have in fact produced a 156-page rule book. The book has themes such as how countries will in fact report and monitor their national pledges to curb greenhouse gas emissions. Now, the Yellow Vest protests have continued for the 5th straight week in France. They ignore French President Emmanuel Macron's calls to hold off the protests as Strasbourg is recovering from a gun attack. Now, the police also fired water cannon and tear gas to disperse the protesters, and the demonstrations, however, were smaller than in the past week. And also topless feminist activists braved the cold to face off with the security forces. The French media showed footage of clashes between the police and protesters. Ukraine has chosen the leader of a new national church. It marks a historic split from the Russian Orthodox Church. Ukrainian President Poroshenko has dubbed the split as spiritual independence from Russia. Meanwhile, Moscow's patriarch has opposed the split. Now, it's said that the head of the church at Istanbul will not recognize the Ukrainian church. The Ukrainian Orthodox Church has been beholden to Moscow for almost 300 years. And Ukraine's leaders see the church's independence as vital to tackling the Russian meddling in their country. The Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that cultural leaders should actually devise a few means of controlling rather than banning popular culture, especially rap music. He also went on to state that if it was impossible to stop something, then one must actually take charge of it. And his comments followed a series of concert cancellations by venue owners and also the brief arrest of a popular rap artist by name Husky. Putin has noted that rap is in fact based on 3 pillars. One is sex, another is drugs, and another is to protest against the government. He was particularly concerned with the drug themes that are prevalent in rap. He said that the culture ministry in Russia will discuss as to how to take control of popular culture in the country. Now, the Affordable Care Act, also popularly known as OBAMACARE, has now been deemed unconstitutional, and this judgment was based on a mandate that required the people to buy either health insurance or pay taxes. The U.S. District Judge Reed O'Connor has agreed with a coalition of almost about 20 states that a change in the tax law last year, in fact, had invalidated Obamacare. The coalition of the states challenging the law was in fact led by 2 Republicans, and O'Connor's decision was issued the day before the end of a 45-day sign-up period for 2019 health coverage under the law. President Donald Trump has said that it was in fact a great ruling for the United States. U.S. Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke will be stepping down from his post at the end of the year. U.S. President Donald Trump has made this announcement on Twitter. He did not give a reason as to why Ryan Zinke was actually departing from the White House. Trump said on Twitter that Ryan had actually accomplished much during his tenure, and he also went on to thank him for his services. Ryan Zinke has in fact run the Interior Department, overseeing America's vast public lands since early 2017. He has pursued Donald Trump's agenda to promote oil and drilling and coal mining. Now, Trump will be announcing a new Interior Secretary by next week. And also, the United National Party's Ranil Wickremesinghe will be sworn in as Sri Lanka's Prime Minister today after disputed Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapakse finally announced his resignation. Rajapakse said that he was in fact making way for the president to form a new government, and this move is now expected to end a political impasse that has paralyzed the government for nearly about 2 months. The Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has said that China, Afghanistan and Pakistan had reached a broad consensus on trilateral cooperation. He also went on to state that the three sides were willing to strengthen coordination and they were willing to push for the Taliban's early return to the negotiating table. Wang made these remarks to the press after the dialogue between the three countries' foreign ministers. The three sides have also vowed to implement the newly signed Memorandum of Understanding on counter-terrorism. The Boeing has opened its first 737 completion plant in China. The new investment is in fact aimed at building a sales lead over arch-rival Airbus. And this comes at a time when China is in fact being overshadowed by a trade war. The world's largest plane maker has also delivered the first of its top-selling 737s, and it was completed at the facility in Zhoushan. The unveiling of the plane was in fact attended by hundreds of people. And also China has celebrated the 40th anniversary of its reform and opening up. A grand gala was held at Beijing, and the Chinese President Xi Jinping, members of the Communist Party of China, state leaders and almost about 3,000 people were present at the event. The gala event gave full expression of the determination and confidence of the Chinese people to carry out reforms and also opening up their economy. And all of this was expressed through various art forms. Australia has now formally recognized West Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and with this move it has reversed decades of Middle East policy. However, the Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has also pointed out that it will not be moving its embassy immediately to Jerusalem, and Australia will move the embassy when it is practical and feasible. Israel has described the move as a step in the right direction, and the Palestinian chief negotiator has referred to it as petty domestic politics. Morrison has also confirmed Australia's support for a two-state solution with a Palestinian capital in East Jerusalem. And Israeli troops demolished the home of a Palestinian in Ramallah. The Palestinian had in fact been accused of killing a soldier in the month of May. Islam Abu Hamid had been arrested in the month of June for the killing of the soldier, and this was the third time that his house has been destroyed. The incursion by the troops triggered clashes with angry residents, and the Israeli troops raided the city of Ramallah in search of a perpetrator of an attack that took place on Thursday. The two Israeli soldiers, remember, had been killed in the attack. Several thousand demonstrators marched in Rome. They were in fact protesting against the government's immigration policies. The policy called Salvini Decree aims to reduce the number of immigrants who are granted humanitarian protection. The protesters also took to the streets in solidarity with the migrants and asylum seekers, and some immigrants also wore yellow vests in solidarity with the protesters in France. They marched alongside students and workers demanding equality in Italy and accusing the government of inciting racial intolerance. Thousands of Greek pensioners from across the country descended upon Athens. They blocked the central avenues to demand the return of their slashed pensions. The pensioners are the only people with an income in several households in Greece. And this is due to the highest rates of unemployment in the Eurozone in the country. But the pensioners claim that their earnings have in fact gone down by as much as about 40% since the 2009 Greek financial crisis. The pensioners said that they would not stop protesting until their pensions were restored to what they were before the cuts. And thousands of protesters braved the cold temperatures in Vienna to protest against the Austrian government. The protests were held on the eve of the first anniversary of the coalition between the Conservatives and the far right. The coalition government has introduced tough anti-immigration measures in the past year. And last month, it also finalized the details of welfare cuts that are aimed at immigrants. Protesters held up banners saying that fascists out of the government and racism gets on my nerve. Police in Maldives have said that they have frozen the bank accounts of former President Abdullah Yameen, and they continue to investigate the allegations by state bodies that he'd actually conducted some illicit financial deals. The government under Ibrahim Ali Ahmed Soli has in fact been trying to determine the extent of the Chinese loans that have been used to finance a construction boom in the Indian Ocean archipelago. Yameen has denied any wrongdoing. He has said that he in fact took loans to accelerate economic development in the country. Brazilian faith healer has been accused of sexual abuse by more than 300 women and is now considered a fugitive. This after he failed to report to the authorities, and an arrest warrant has now been issued against João Teixeira de Faria, who is also known as John of God. He has been asked to surrender, but his location is presently unknown, and in a video broadcast, his lawyer has said that he would report to the authorities, but he didn't mention the definite time. The healer has denied the accusations when he visited his center and spoke to a crowd of followers. An iconic tram in Lisbon derailed and overturned, and according to the Portuguese people, it injured as many as about 28 people. The victims trapped inside of the carriage were then taken to the hospital, and according to officials, no one was very badly injured. Over 60 rescuers and 24 emergency vehicles were involved in the rescue operation. And the tram's manufacturer has said that a full investigation will in fact take place. As many as about 40 same-sex couples got married in downtown Sao Paulo. They tied the knot partly out of fear, and they are fearing that the government under Jair Bolsonaro could in fact restrict same-sex marriages. The couples also exchanged vows during a collective ceremony at an NGO. The Casa One provides support to disadvantaged LGBT youth, and the couples were in fact rushing to take the vows before Bolsonaro's inauguration on the 1st of January. Egypt has announced the discovery of a 4,400-year-old tomb. The private tomb belonged to an official from the 5th dynasty of the pharaohs. The tomb was decorated with hieroglyphics and statuettes of different sizes and colors. The officials expect more discoveries in the coming months. The tomb was in fact found in a buried ridge at the ancient necropolis of Saqqara. Now, Mustafa Waziri, who is the Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, has described the find as a one of a kind in the last few decades. Residents living on an island by the Irkut River in Brazil have invented their own way of crossing the waters when it turns to ice. They've in fact come up with a makeshift cable car, and no crossing has in fact been established in that area. Residents start in a rope from one side of the shore to the other, and they use a collapsible cable car hanging from a pulley to transport themselves to and from their homes. Now, the cable rests at a height of almost about 32 feet above the ground, and hence it is considered extremely dangerous. Now, a social media application in Brazil is in fact helping trash collectors earn money. The Kitaki app allows trash collectors to register on their platform. People in an area can use the app to find and then ping a registered trash collector. The collectors go to the residence of the office of the customers to pick up trash in their push carts. They bring it back to the recycling plants, and then they get paid by the kilo for the recyclable materials. Collectors can also negotiate a collection fee with the app user for trash or larger items like furniture and appliances.